Welcome everyone. This is Dina from the Marks Group Live, and I'm happy to be reviewing with you how to manage user security in Zoho CRM. After the video is over, feel free to email us at support@marksgrouplive.com for any questions you have on this topic or anything else related to Zoho. In addition, please feel free to rate this class to help out your fellow Zoho users, as well as to help us improve our video library. Here are some of the key takeaways we're going to be discussing today. There are various ways that you can manage user security. The three that we're going to cover that are outlined here are profiles, which determine which Zoho features a user can access, and one example of that would be what modules they can access. Roles define which data is accessible to the user, and data sharing settings have two purposes. One is to determine the org level permissions, and the other is the sharing rules among users. So let's go over to Zoho and look at what we have here. So if you see here, we have the tool symbol at the top right corner, and you're going to click on that, and then under users and control, you're going to go to security control. And as I just mentioned, we have profiles, roles, and data sharing settings. Starting with profiles, what you can see here is that we have different profiles names. We have the administrator and the standard, which are the ones that come with Zoho, and then you can create other types as well. So here, we're going to create a new profile, and I'll show you what to do here. So you're going to click New Profile, and then you're going to add that profile name. So here, let's call it just Profile Sales. And then what Zoho does is rather than have you start from scratch, they have you clone an existing profile. So in this case, we're going to choose a standard profile, and we'll make whatever changes we would want from there. And then if you wanted to, you can add in a profile description as well. Then we're going to hit Create. And then you'll see that there's a lot of different permissions on the left side here that you can choose from. The first being basic. And these basic permissions really related to which modules you want the user to have access to, or the people in that profile. So you can either click the green symbol on or off to determine what the access to that module is. And then within that module, you then have several options of what you want users in this profile to do. First one is View, and if you unclick View, it basically takes away access to that module. If you then have Create, can they create records in that module? Edit, which is more related to whether they can make changes to those records, or Delete, can they make deletions of records? And you can see various modules. A lot of them have these similar criteria. But then if you look under Reports, for example, there are different options that are more relevant to that module, which here would be View, to view reports, whether you can manage reports, and whether you can schedule reports. So this covers the basic permissions, and then we have the import-export. And this is really related to whether you can import or export records into specific modules. Now, if I click on the drop-down, you can see you can pick which modules the users in that profile can import records into. But the note at the bottom here is very important, because if you don't have permission to even see that module, then you're not going to have it listed here. So you need to have the create permission within a module to be able to import, because you'd be importing records. If we click out of that, then we have some other module permissions, including send email, which again is tied to which modules you're in. And then if you look at the note on the bottom, you need to have view permissions to be able to send email. We have others, including tools, which are like things like mass updates, mass deletes, and again, they're tied to the different modules. After module permissions, if you look on the left here, we have setup permissions, and these are really related to what functionality in the system that user profile has. And if you scroll down on the right, you can see you can turn that off completely, because basically a lot of these are related to admin type functions. So you can turn it on or off, and then you can still determine whether you're going to give certain permissions to that profile. So maybe it's the admin level permissions you don't give, but maybe here you have email and templates, and maybe in here there's no harm in in giving template accessibility to this profile. You can also do the same with automation and a few other items as well. After setup permissions um, comes extension permissions. And what the extension permissions are things like accessing other plugins or third-party integrators or other systems or apps that will click into Zoho as well. So they have different ones related to Zoho, Google, other APIs that you can play around with. So if we go back out of the profile, you could see that the next category is roles, which I mentioned earlier. And roles, what you see here is that it really looks almost like an org chart. And the way this works is that the higher up you are in the org chart, the more information you'll be able to see. So for example, you have this VP of sales. Reporting into the VP of sales is a sales manager and then the salesperson. So the VP of sales will be able to see all records related to both the sales manager and the salesperson. The salesperson is no one below them, so they will only be able to see their own records. The sales manager is in the middle, so they'll be able to see the salesperson records, but they will not be able to see the VP of sales. And one thing to note is that there is a cross-peer levels as well. So the CEO has a VP of sales, the VP of marketing, and the VP of service. And they all are peers reporting into the CEO. As you'll see in a minute, one option you have is that you can actually share data across peers, but that is something that you have to decide if that's what you'd want to do. So within each salesperson, here you have the salesperson, you can add a manager, you can add a manager here, you can add the manager, or you can add another salesperson. You can do different things here. But if we go in and add a new role here, this is an easier place to do it. And maybe we want to call this one marketing analyst. And then you can go and click the person and say, who do you want that marketing analyst to report to? Well, we already have a marketing analyst here, so maybe we want him to report into the marketing manager, and then maybe we'll go back and change this to marketing analyst 1. And then you can either decide to share it with peers, so maybe all marketing analysts will be able to share information with each other, and then you can write a description as well. I'm going to save this for now, and then if you go to the roles list, then you could see that now under the marketing manager, there's the new marketing analyst 1 that we added. So now there's 2 marketing analysts reporting into the marketing manager. And then, so this is how you can manage who can see information. The next area is the data sharing settings. And as I mentioned, there's 2 parts to this. The first part has to do with the default organization permissions. And this has to do with how can you see the information, or can you see the information at the very top of the organization level. And then what we're going to do is look at sharing rules, which will override these default permissions and allow you to make exceptions on a user basis. So if we wanted to look at this, we can edit all permissions, and then you can see what the options are. So for a lead, you can make it private, which means that only the owner of that record can see that record. You can make all leads available to read only, or you can make all leads available for read, write, or delete. And you can do that with all of the various modules that there are. Okay, so if we go back and we cancel out of here, then you can see that there's different access that's been set as the default. If we scroll down. Next is sharing rules. So what the sharing rules do is, again, they override those default permissions. And here we're saying that there's a group called marketing that can share their lead records. And the permission type is that the people who they're sharing can read those records, write, or delete. But they chose not to allow superiors to see what was shared. Now, if we go in and create a new sharing rule for the lead module, you can see that you can choose either groups to share across, roles, or roles and subordinates. Roles and subordinates would mean that everybody underneath that role would also be able to see the records that are shared. So if we just stick with groups for a minute, you can see now that there are a number of different existing groups. So you can pick which group, say the marketing group, and you could say that you want them to share with the marketing group. And then you can decide, do you want them to read records only, or do you want them to be able to read, write, or delete on those emails? And again, here's where the superior allowed can be checked or not checked. And then you would create the sharing rule. So, and then one thing that's important to know is that when you add or delete sharing rules, you need to hit this compute here in the top part of your screen to be able to apply all the changes. And again, you can do this across any module because the sharing rules are specific to each of the modules. So now let's go back and look at what we talked about in summary. So user security is a very broad topic, and what it covers is profiles, which determine which features the user can have access to, Zoho features, such as the modules. The roles will define what that user has, what data that user or the role has accessible. And then there's the data sharing rules, which include the overall org level permissions of what users can see, and then sharing rules, which let you override those org level permissions and give people more access on an as needed basis. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please check out our library for other training videos like this one. If you have any suggestions for other classes or questions you may have about Zoho, please email us at support@marksgrouplive.com. Thank you for watching.